Sorry, Bucknuts and Sparties. The hammer is not coming. I'll prove it to you next on this week's episode of Michigan Podcast.
But there's going to be one team that's going to play solely as a team. No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team.
Looks deep for Anthony Clark. Waits for it. Gets caught.
Hey, they said you can't beat Ohio State. Now what?
Brady gets terrific. Throws it, get it, touchdown, Knight again. Schultz just before Brazil got him, and a leaping interception by Woodson.
Harbaugh back to throw over the middle, caught by Collier at the 5 on his feet, touchdown Michigan. On its way. It's good.
He's 5'7", 179 pounds, a junior at Michigan. But Jamie Morris packs a wallop, and he delivers for Bo Schembechler.
And here's your first play. Pressure coming. Sack. It is Glenn Steele, number 81, who fought his way through the traffic.
Option. And Robinson calls his own number, and he's going to score. Oh, an easy touchdown for Robinson and Michigan.
Win it. We're going to win the championship again because we're going to play as a team. And when we play as a team and the old season is over, you and I know it's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Go Blue. Merry Christmas to all of you. It's our final episode of 2024 of Michigan Podcast. I'm Steve Deace, and normally this is the time of year when we would receive glad tidings of great joy. Unfortunately, if you are Brohio69 on the Bucknuts message board, or if you are Spartan Raw Dog Me on the Red Cedar message board, what I'm about to say will not be glad tidings of great joy to you. Instead, it will be confirmation that a great injustice has occurred and gotten away with. I know there is a group of you, a not insignificant number, in fact. And for the better part of this year, like the true warriors for truth and virtue you are, you have held down the fort. You have kept the flames of justice ablaze, patiently waiting, knowing that the iron laws of the universe bend to justice. And you knew that the time would eventually come when a team that had 19 NFL draft picks and a top 10 pick at quarterback and one of the only coaches in the history of the sport to coach a Super Bowl and a national championship game, nevertheless lucked its way into winning it all because one of its low-level assistants hired his mom to take her cell phone and tape footage at games he could have just gotten off of the All-22. Not on your watch. Oh, no. Not on your watch would such injustice not meet a vicious and deserved punishment. So you've been waiting. You've been waiting. It's the Sparties and the Bucknuts have been waiting. Which side would light the pyre? Gondor calls for aid. Waiting for the signal. For the NCAA to say, at my signal, unleash hell. And that judgment would finally come. Your perseverance and patience, I may say obsession, would finally finally be satiated. You've waited. You've been confident. So confident that literally pages of message board material have been composed these last 10 and a half months. Some may even say Psalm level entertainment. I'm sorry. Conviction. I regret to inform you, however, that you're about to be very disappointed. No hammer is coming, and it never was. There will be ultimately no justice, at least not in this life. Maybe one day, Connor Stallions and Jim Harbaugh and the entirety of the Michigan football staff that pulled off the greatest cheating scandal of all time, because Connor's mom filmed footage from the 47th row on her cell phone that she never even understood, and the unique secrets contained therein. Nay, you may have to wait to eternity, when the football gods finally render a final verdict and all of the evil and injustice that was done here, which as a Michigan fan, I'm not proud of. I'm pretty freaking proud. Nevertheless, that justice will have to come in the next life. Because with Michigan signing its athletics director to a contract extension, and then giving the go-ahead for its NIL program to just openly operate out in the open with the CEO of Oracle in a way that would make Alabama and Georgia blush if they had any shame. There's no way Michigan's doing either or both of those things. If it thought there was any chance the hammer would drop, that justice was coming, the bill would come due. It came due November 30th. Michigan 13. Ohio State 10. It came due at the Big House, Michigan 24. Michigan State 17. We didn't just beat y'all without Connor Stallions. We beat y'all without a freaking quarterback. Didn't need Connor Stallions' cell phone footage from his mama for that. Now, I have to especially address Brohio. I'm sure you're watching. A mythical figure, really stole the thunder of Connor Stallions in his own documentary on Netflix just a few months ago. Brohio, I would say he's really a testament to the Buckeye fan base, kind of a symbol for it. And the level of focus, intensity, cultic-like idolatry, devotion, by which he was fixated that the hammer would finally fall. Lady Justice would not be blind nor deterred. If you know Brohio, pour one out. Thoughts and prayers for Brohio. And for Brohio and Sparty Raw Dog and all the rest of y'all, you can come down from the tower now. You know, the water tower where you're holding that rifle. You can come down now. Come down now. Back to the land of the living. You are free now to touch grass. You may even, with consent, of course, kiss a girl. It can happen. It can happen again. I know. All these things that I just mentioned, this joyous, wondrous holiday season, a chance once again to consume something other than the rarefied air of a zealous pursuit for justice, and maybe even physical contact with a member of the opposite sex. I know all of these things do not hold a candle, cannot even come close to approaching the satisfaction of justice being done upon those villainous Michigan Wolverines. But you're just going to have to settle for that. You're just going to have to settle for being a human being. Again, and I know for a lot of you, you have been so in tuned to the pursuit of justice, you forgot what that was like. And to all of you, I can only say, go blue. So for one final time in 2024, let's have the 10-minute war with our good friend from the other side of the Buckeye fence, Mr. Scarlet and Gray himself, Mark Rogers, who has a fantastic college football channel right here on YouTube. You want to check it out year-round. And then he also happens to do his best, although it is nearly impossible, but he strives nevertheless to be one of the few, the proud, a reasonable Bucknut himself. Mark, good to see you, brother. Merry Christmas to you. How are you?
Merry Christmas, Steve. Good to see you as well. I've just been sitting here preparing for the start of the show here, just contemplating how you must be kicking yourself because you wasted all that time, that effort for that miserable experience at the Rose Bowl, watching your team in a meaningless game take down Nick Saban and that Alabama rag bunch team when you could have been, investing in this year's ReliaQuest Bowl trip to take on Kalen DeBoer's Alabama team. That would have been money well spent.
We'll get to that here in just a little bit. First of all, how does it feel to lose at home to a 21-point underdog, not even make the Big Ten championship game, but finish fourth in the conference, and then get a more favorable draw, arguably, than the number one team in the country that's been number one for the last 8 weeks of the season and won the Big Ten conference? Because, I don't know. I right now I've got Ohio State going to the national championship game against Notre Dame. That's my pick.
Well, the way I look at it is I like the intent of this college football playoff. And I like the tension between the objective metrics of the conference championship and the wins and losses mattering on the field versus the committee. For as much as I rail against the committee and I'm not fully invested, I would love to see a completely objective system, but the tension between the judgment of who should receive these at-large bids, and I think that they got it right. Not that those are the 12 best teams in the country, they are not, but that they got the most deserving, the teams that earned the spots. So I'm good with that. The seedings, yes, have to be addressed. There's no question about that. What Penn State is pulling off here, and yes, I'm going to stay a reasonable Bucknut, but I'm going to go homer route on this one because Ohio State got completely ripped off here in comparison to Penn State's draw. Now, here's the situation. When comparing Ohio State and Penn State, you've got an 11-2 team, a 10-2 team, virtually the same record. Throw out the Kent State win for Penn State. It's the same record. Okay. Ohio State wins the game head-to-head in Happy Valley, gained control on their side, played the much better game. Not a dominant blowout performance, but they were decidedly the better team on the field against Penn State. Point number two, Penn State plays in a Big Ten championship game. They stay within distance, striking distance of Oregon, but were never truly a threat in this game. They were down constantly by 2 scores. And Ohio State goes to Autzen Stadium, whether you want to call it 1 second away, 1 play away, a pass interference call away, a field goal, whatever. They were in field goal range to win the game. No comparison between how they measured up against Oregon. And point number 3, the other best team in the conference, Ohio State played and beat by 23 points. Penn State didn't play them. How Penn State's a higher seed by 2 spots is beyond me. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't disagree with you. I think you could have just stopped that. We beat them on the field. We have the same record. And we're the only team in the country that has Well, Oregon can say that now, having beaten Penn State, but going into the final week, Ohio State was the only team that had beaten 2 other teams in the field. So, I mean, it was a pretty simple argument. It's just stuck there. I am curious, Mark, there is a theory going around that there might be reverse home field advantage for Ohio State in this game. And I talked about this last week on the show. I led the show off with this, that I really thought Buckeye fan deserved an assist for Michigan's win last Saturday. That much of the nervous tension, this was not Michigan just taking control of the game with J.J. McCarthy and Donovan Edwards and then reversing the energy in the stadium. That the minute this thing got to the fourth quarter and it was not a 2-touchdown lead, that Ohio State fan in that stadium themselves imposed the reverse juju. And it was somewhat of a tongue-in-cheek troll, but I was dead serious. They absolutely contributed to us winning that football game. I mean, the tension, you could just feel it watching on TV. I mean, and I know it because I'm a Detroit Lions fan. So prior to Dan Campbell breaking the House of Usher curse, I lived through 40 years of just tell me how we're going to invent a way to blow it this time. I mean, I know what that feels like, even over a television screen, and I could feel that from Buckeye Nation. I have heard some handicappers surmise that there is a reverse, that Ohio State would have been better off going on the road in this first round. And that the minute things do not go well, or it looks like Tennessee's not just going to roll over, but might be willing to punch back, that stadium and that fan base is going to turn on Ryan Day and vis-a-vis the team. You buy that?
I buy it. And I buy it unlike any other team in the country. I buy it for this school, this program, but specifically this team and their relationship and this coach with this fan base. And I generally blame the fan base overwhelmingly. It's the same knuckleheads that get on message boards and on social media and troll recruits when they say or do something or visit a campus that they don't like, where they are completely sabotaging their own recruiting efforts like morons. Well, they will get in the stadium, and if they're down 14-3 at half with all sorts of capabilities to come back to win that game, that place is going to be a mausoleum. It is going to be, and just the vibe of coming back out of that tunnel again, just weeks after the Michigan loss. And the fans can't do anything about that necessarily, and that remembrance of that, but just knowing how they were treated again when things started to go south or didn't break free in terms of winning by 2 or 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. I do buy into that, other than the typical things that you're not having to deal with Neyland Stadium and a raucous crowd that would be just crazy, considering what Tennessee's football program has been like for 15 years, just anticipating getting to play the college football playoff. Those people would appreciate it just a million times more than Ohio State fans will in this situation. So Ohio State fans basically consider this we have to win this game. This is not going to impress us. This is just a mere formality that we have to win to keep moving. So we're not going to be overjoyed. We're not going to be celebrating this win. Just appease us for 3.5 hours. But if things start to go south, I completely agree with that assessment that it could go the other way, and this could be a negative. Yeah, cut loose, cut free from everything negative from this season, which is obviously just basically the Michigan game. Go on the road, but they didn't have that choice, and they're at home, and they're going to have to get off to a quick start.
One big picture question on the sport, then let's talk Michigan. I think we will only have one more season of this format. I think in 26, they will go to a 16-team playoff where the 2 teams that qualify for all of the power conference championship games will be automatic 8 bids. 1 bid will go to a team outside of the Power 4, and the rest will be at large. Or they will go to a 14-team playoff, and that will be much the same format, but it'll allow them to give buys essentially to the top 2 conference champs, and incentivize the Big Ten and SEC championship games. I never believed that Alabama was getting in once SMU lost reasonably close, for the simple reason as most of that committee, including its chair, are athletic directors. The number one revenue drawer that these athletic departments have and these conferences have that they don't have to share with other leagues are the conference championship games for football. It's the number one revenue drawer that all of the power leagues have that they don't have to share with the rest of the sport like they do playoff games. They don't want to diminish that. You don't want to send the message, hey, SMU is better off staying home and not playing the game. And we're going to devalue our own number one product. They were never going to do that. So they're going to expand it one more time, I think, in 26. And whatever they expand it to, it will be meant to further enhance or maintain the perceived value of the conference championship games, because that's the biggest moneymaker that any of these leagues have.
Well, I tend to not like buys unless you can give me a substantial objective basis to a team like in the NFL. I get the buy system. It's been changed a few different times, but I generally get the buy system. And because of the close proximity of the schedules and the overlap, it obviously makes sense, and it's objective, and we all understand why. And if we go to 16, for as much as I would like that, taking the buys out of it, the 14 provides and corrects the situation that we're seeing this year, where 2 and 3 loss champions from lesser leagues get these top spots, let alone a group of 5 getting its way into the top 4 bids. And so, we anticipated this being an issue, but not to this extreme. With the likes of a down Clemson team getting into the field. They didn't get a bye, but they get into the field after losing 2 games to the SEC and losing to another team that people are considering one of the 12 best in the country. And they rebound from that based on another score from another game to set themselves up to play a horrible fourth quarter. So they limp into the playoff, don't really look like a playoff team, win a marginalized conference. And then fortunately, the committee, though, again, not selecting the 12 best teams, the 12 that earned it.
There's no way to determine the 12 best teams. There's no way to determine this.
Well,
we have to have, the games have to count.
No, I'm not God. I'm not omniscient.
Yeah, you can't determine that. So the best you can do is the most deserving teams based off the game results. Everything else is just a projection.
Yeah, it's a projection, although you can weigh schedules, you can weigh the difficulty of the wins.
Really, because I'm being told that Alabama is being penalized for playing a tough schedule and needs to water down its non-conference schedule when all 3 of his losses were in the league.
Well, that was a stupid comment.
And SMU is there because they played BYU. SMU is in because they played BYU out of the league. They're getting rewarded for playing the tougher non-conference schedule. Alabama lost all 3 of those conference games. Dude, just beat Vanderbilt, and you're in the SEC championship game, and we're not even having this conversation. I mean, I don't understand any of these arguments, frankly, at all. None of them.
Well, the argument is that Alabama plays a much better schedule, or at least did this year, than Indiana. Indiana played an awful
No, the
schedule.
argument is Alabama has better recruits. Now NFL mock drafts apparently are factored in. Play the effing games. All right. You played the games on the field, dude. Don't lose 24-3 to 6-6 Oklahoma. Don't do that. And
Absolutely.
We're not having this conversation. The games have to matter, man. The games have to matter.
I am not campaigning for Alabama, but what I'm saying is that those 3 teams in the SEC, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, they had to play a much tougher schedule than Indiana did. Indiana beat 1 team with a winning record. Now, it's not their fault what the Big Ten gave them.
Doesn't mean they're better than Indiana. I don't disagree with that. Doesn't mean they're better. We don't know. We have no idea. There's no way to know.
We don't know. We know that Michigan took them to a 1-score game and outplayed them the second half of the game. And we know that they blew out a lot of horrible teams. And when they had one opportunity against a legitimate team that's a playoff team, they got outplayed. They didn't get blasted. They lost by 23 points. So no, I'm not sticking up for Alabama in particular, but there's no question that those 3 teams in the SEC played much more difficult schedules than Indiana and SMU, whose best wins are Duke, Louisville, Boston College. So yes, I believe that the committee made the choices that they needed to make based on, number one, me wanting to see personally the teams that earned it, but also they set themselves up that way. There was no way they were going to drop a number 8 ranked team in the country all the way out of or we would have all sorts of issues with how they're perceiving these teams and not following the logic. So they boxed themselves into an SMU close game in the ACC championship game and keeping them in the playoff. And they made the right move. Again, not the 12 best teams in the country. I know neither one of us nor anyone knows who the 12 best teams in the country, but you certainly have an opinion based that who the 12 best teams are.
Let's talk Michigan. Let's talk Michigan. I want to get your take on what I started the show with. If you have been spending all this year, if you are Brohio on the Bucknuts message board, if you are Sparty Dog for Evs on the Red Cedar message board, you have kept the flame. You have held down the fort. You have maintained vigilance. You have been awaiting the hammer to drop to completely discredit Michigan's last season because one of its lowest level assistants had his mom take a cell phone to football games and record stuff on sidelines he could have gotten just from doing this on the all 22 video if he wanted to take the time to do it. I know you guys have done it. You've done it, right? I mean, you have honored Lady Justice, and the universe is proud. But I have some very bad news for you here during this season of glad tidings and great joy. Michigan signing its athletic director to a 5-year extension, giving an absolute blank check to its NIL program to just out in the open refuse to be outbid by the likes of Ohio State ever again. Pretty obvious. Hate to tell you, you can go ahead now, let go of the rope, enjoy Christmas. You don't have to sit there, and wait for Gondor to call for aid. It's over. No hammer is dropping. We're all moving on. Jim Harbaugh will get some superfluous, never matter, 75-year Neolithic. He's banned until the Neolithic era penalty from the NCAA, and that's literally about it. We're all just moving on. Brohio can take off the mask, all right? And everyone can just now move on with their lives. All the signs are there. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm hearing all this from you and others about about Michigan having all these resources and so forth, and it's been substantiated and it's there. We know what these recruits want. We know what these portal players want. First and foremost, yes, they want to be developed into NFL players, and we can go through all the past bullet points of why they make the decisions they do. But it's first and foremost about the almighty dollar. And so Michigan's going to have an unlimited, apparently unlimited amount of resources there. So we're just going to have to see it play out. I don't have any necessary thoughts about anything that's not tangible. I've heard the demise of the program on this podcast and our conversations with you in the past. So I'm not necessarily going to buy into unforeseen dominance and complete and utter destruction for everybody in Michigan's path. I'll have to see that.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you were waiting for vacated wins and all this stuff from the NCAA, it's time to climb down from the tower. Helm's Deep has been taken. Except the new reality.
Come down.
Yeah, just enjoy the rest of your holiday season. It's not happening. All right.
Well, yeah, that I put that away a long time ago in regard. I've got my own thoughts about the cheating, as it were. It was.
Do you know Brohio? Do you know Brohio? You know that dude?
I don't know who you're talking about.
Legendary. You saw him on the Connor Stallions doc on Netflix, I would assume, right? Brohio.
I did not watch that.
You have to watch that. Brohio's the star,
and other
bro.
more important people on YouTube.
Brohio stole the show. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to rob Connor of his legend status, and I'm not sure Brohio necessarily got there, but dude is close. I mean, Brohio brought it, man. I work full time in politics, and even I was like, damn, that's some sanctimony. Okay, I mean, Brohio stuck the landing. All right, on that. All right, let's get to an utterly meaningless scrimmage that Michigan and Alabama are going to play New Year's Eve called the ReliaQuest Bowl, because that's really all that it is. It's just, Michigan, this is going to be like a second spring game. I think Alabama will name the score because I think Ryan Williams has to play, and I think Jalen Milroe will. I don't see that Jalen Milroe had the kind of year that he has to come back to college. I don't see him as a first-round pick. I think he's back for a fifth year, and virtually everybody that made a play that mattered in our game against you guys is not playing in this game. So, I mean, a bunch of guys for Alabama that don't want to be there versus a bunch of guys for Michigan who probably won't even play much next year. That's bowl season now. So what do you think?
Well, there's going to be a faction of college football fans that just because there are Alabama uniforms running around against Michigan laundry, that's going to entice them. And I am partially that person. And even with the opt-outs in previous seasons, I could buy into these are the freshmen and sophomore, and we're getting to see the next wave, and we're getting to see the future of Michigan football, the future of Alabama football. But with the transfer portal, who knows?
Right.
So that was always enticing to me, to see the next wave, to see the quarterback replacement, the next guy for 2025.
There's some guys I want to see. Jordan Marshall, get 15 carries in a game and see what happens.
Sure.
He's the first Mr. Ohio we have signed since Charles Woodson, right? I want to, but that's essentially from a Michigan perspective. And I would say this, if the shoe were on the other foot, okay, great. Alabama, everybody who's good is going to the draft. We beat, their second or third string. Who gives a flying flip? These results are beyond meaningless. This is strictly a player development exercise, these games at this point.
And that's sad, because what if, for those of us, you and I are in this category that like to look at all-time winning percentages and wins and bowl records and major bowl records. Well, the bowl record, that used to be one of the first things you would go to in looking at a coach's resume. What's his bowl record? Well, that's already tainted and going to be completely a non-factor at some point, but still brought up when measuring all-time great programs. What's the bowl record? And Michigan's, I guess, 6 games under 500 in terms of a bowl record, but I don't know how significant that's going to be in the future, although college football playoff games are going to be kind of wedged in and compiled the same way. So I know, and Nick Saban, though, we can say a lot of things about this guy, and mostly positive, of course, but I don't know if anything speaks to his legacy and his culture as much as the last time Alabama and Michigan played. He pretty much kept his team intact, that underachieved, didn't make the playoff, should have made the playoff, had the talent to do it, of course, and had great NFL players on that team. Devontae Smith and Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs at wide receiver stay in that game. They did have a couple opt-outs, but they stayed intact. Michigan showed up for that game. It was a decent game for into the fourth quarter. And the last time Alabama took the field with Will Anderson and Bryce Young, of course, at the Sugar Bowl, Nick Saban was able to keep that team intact to play what otherwise would be a meaningless, what was once a historic great bowl game, but meaningless, and kept that intact. Kalen DeBoer, not that kind of pull. I don't know that Nick Saban would have that kind of pull, because we've passed another threshold, and it's now completely out of sight in regards to the levity or the leverage of these bowl games.
All right. When we chat next, we're going to know who the final 4 teams are. We chat next, I think January 7th is the next time you and I talk. All right. With the next episode. So my final 4 is I have Ohio State versus Texas in the Cotton Bowl, and Notre Dame versus Penn State in the Orange Bowl. That's what I think the Final 4 is going to be. You got a Final 4 yet?
I don't have a Final 4. I can't even add up the brackets off the top of my head. I don't even know who would make it. I will say that my preseason pick was Ohio State to beat Alabama in the national championship game. And so as long as my national championship winner is still alive, I stay with them. But I got to say, my confidence in Ohio State, even against Tennessee, whom they should beat, Vegas is telling us that, and I believe Vegas, and I'm on par with Vegas in terms of taking the emotions and the psychology out of it, that they should win the game by 7 or 8 points. I'm right there with Vegas, but my confidence level is not high with this football team right now. I'm trying to draw strength from 2022 when they got blown out of the stadium in the fourth quarter by Donovan Edwards and company, and were able to rally to take on Georgia. But I don't know how much of that was Ryan Day, how much of that was CJ Stroud's right arm. So I don't have a lot of confidence. The teams that I like in this playoff, I believe that Oregon, Texas, and Georgia, and again, as a wild card, Ohio State are the best teams in the country.
Georgia's not going to have its quarterback.
What's that?
They're not going to have their quarterback.
Who's
with that elbow injury? Georgia won't.
Georgia with Carson Beck.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still think that they can patchwork together enough to get through at least a couple games to get to the championship game.
All right. Last question, and all I got time for is a yes or no answer. The next time you appear on this show, which it looks like it's going to be January 7th, is Ryan Day still the Ohio State football coach?
Yes.
Okay. All right, brother. Merry Christmas. Take care. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, Steve. Thanks.
You bet. All right, this week's X-Poll results. We asked you, is Bryce Underwood the starting quarterback for Michigan on August 30th at the Big House against New Mexico in the 2025 season opener? A majority of you say the answer is yes. I think the answer is no. I think Michigan will land a veteran quarterback here in the transfer portal, and that guy will end up starting that opener. I think if there were 2 weeks before Oklahoma on the road, I'd be more inclined to say yes. But I think Michigan will get a veteran and try to have someone at least play the role of Cade McNamara to Bryce Underwood's J.J. McCarthy for as long as they can next fall. That brings us to our feedback of the week. And Inactive Dev says, hey, it's all good to give Ward Manuel a contract extension. And I don't disagree. And I wouldn't have said that maybe even a year ago. I think this is an era now where if you're a school like Michigan, you need an AD who's just a stone cold killer. And if there's anything Ward Manuel had shown up until this point, he is not. It is that. And yet, last March, he went hardcore after Dusty May, the top coaching candidate in the last basketball carousel, landed his man over Louisville. You look at what's been done here in terms of finally just taking all of the prophylactic off of the Michigan NIL money cannon. There's a lot of success right now in structural integrity to the football, basketball, and hockey programs, which are the 3 biggies at Michigan. So I'm still not entirely convinced that Ward is a killer, but I'm more open to being sold on that than I was a year ago. So yes, I would have given him the extension as well. All right, don't forget that you can like, rate, share, subscribe, 5-star review, follow, whichever you do, whether you're watching on YouTube right here or listening on iTunes. Please do all those things. It really helps us to find more Michigan fans just like you. You can also comment here as well, and we always love to see and read your comments, and we rarely do either one of those things, but we just like to see that they're there. So thank you for that. Don't forget also that you can follow us in between episodes at Michigan Podcast on X. Again, that's at Michigan Podcast on X. I got to especially, the bowl game is going to be an intelligence test for some of you, right? Some of you are going to literally be, when it's like 35-10 Alabama in the third quarter, you're going to just be losing it, okay? Losing it. Because some third-string right guard who won't play a single down of meaningful football for Michigan next year can't hold his water against Alabama in a meaningless scrimmage. Don't be that guy. Don't let that be you. Don't do that. It's a meaningless scrimmage. Okay. Enjoy it at noon Eastern on New Year's Eve. Find out, which guys kind of flash. If they win, great. If they don't, who freaking cares? Don't be that guy. Don't be eager to jump on X and be like, yeah, I'm the fool that belongs on the Red Cedar message board. It's really me. I'm betraying my own fan base. Don't be that guy. Be better than that. Be self-aware. Meaningless scrimmage. All right. Enjoy the holiday. All right. Also, don't forget, this is our final episode before the holidays. We are back again in January. Hope to see a lot of you then when we return, and a whole lot of new pieces on this roster as well. Merry Christmas to all of you. Happy New Year too. Until the next time we meet, I'm Steve Deace. Go Blue.